And we're live.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Camera Life podcast. It's, what are we at? It's the 3rd of April. I don't know. First quarter just disappeared. All of a sudden, it went from being the slowest time in history to all of a sudden it's over, and here we are at the start of April. I'm really keen to know, too, please comment in the chat, were you impacted by any April Fool's gags that you actually fell for? I've got a couple of photography-related ones that I've come across. A couple of brands put out some cheeky little things, but yeah, if you fell for something, let us know. Or if you heard some good ones, equally let us know. But look, this is the Camera Life podcast. It is the 3rd of April, 2025. It's episode 66, brought to you proudly by the team at Lucky Straps, makers of premium leather camera straps from Bendigo, Victoria, Australia. Represent.
Where's my merch? What's going on?
Yeah, we'll get you something. Don't you worry. Yeah, you can get rid of all that Fuji stuff, Andrew. And speaking of which, we are joined today by Andrew Hall. Andrew is the application training manager and technical projects manager for Fujifilm Australia. But Andrew is so much more than that. I've been mates with Andrew for a good number of years, and Andrew is one of the best motorsports photographers I've ever seen. But he shoots lots of other stuff. He's always got a camera in his hand, and he's always out and about with it. And I just seem to see even his everyday stuff seems glorious to view. So we're going to dig into that. But Andrew, welcome to the Camera Life.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I must admit, Andrew, you've been at the top of my guest list since the rebirth of the Camera Life podcast. So it's great to finally have you on. We will get into your job with Fujifilm and the huge amount of travel you do photographing motorsports in far off corners of the globe. But before we get to that, can you just give us a bit of a summary, who you are, what you do?
Who I am? Well, thank you for asking me on the podcast. It's been it's been a long time. We've been trying to line everything up. As you said, I work for Fujifilm in lovely sunny Sydney today. So I'm the application training manager and special projects manager, but I'm also that's my real job. That's my day job. Very proud of that. I've been with Fuji 32 years. But aside from that, I'm also and separate to that, which involves all my travel, I'm a proud Fujifilm X Series and GFX ambassador. And apparently I have to do that every time I mention the word ambassador. I have to salute. So I've been a proud ambassador for like 10 years, more than 10 years. I noticed my bio that you put up. It said 25 years experience. I think it's time to update my bio. That's
well, that was from your website.
That's about. Oh, is it? God. So I haven't updated my website for 15 years.
No, you haven't.
It's this is my 40th year. So I'm fortunate enough to be able to travel the world, taking pictures of racing cars. But as Greg touched on, I love all forms of photography. I've been involved in the camera club movement for many years. I was president of a camera club up here in Sydney for 10 years. So I love all forms of photography.
I think just to cut in there, mate, Donald Trump would be very jealous of your term as president.
I know it's 10 years.
I know he's pushing for that, but you've done well.
I was more sort of benevolent dictator. I think that's the look I went for 10 years.
It's going around. I don't know about the benevolent bit, but the dictator bit's going around.
I went away as I was on the committee. I went away and came back and was president. So it was just like I think that was decided for me while I was away. So 40 years, 20 years shooting film. And now 20 years shooting digital. It was when I was chatting to you the other day, Greg, that I just realized that's the tipping point. When I first started, it was all film, it was all 2 frames a second, a motor winder, manual focus, no autofocus, definitely no image stabilizer. So back in those days, everything was it's changed so much. But I'm an old photographer in a new era. I think I still shoot pretty much digital the way I shoot film. I don't pray and spray. I do experiment a bit more. Obviously, with digital, you can do that. But So yeah, I've been lucky enough to work for some amazing companies and manufacturers and car manufacturers and websites around the world. So I keep saying, obviously, you know, my history, Greg, I have a degenerative nerve disease, which will eventually stop me. But I think last year was my 15th annual farewell tour. So I keep pushing it. This year,
more than Johnny Farnham.
More than John Farnham, mate. Yeah. So this year will be definitely my last full year, just purely because it's becoming more and more difficult.
Are you talking about just the motorsport circuit?
Just the motorsport stuff. I'll never step back from photography. You know, I'll always have a camera in my hand. So.
I'm sure we'll probably get into it deeper into the show, what it is that you actually do. But just so I know and our listeners know, what do you mean? Like, what's a full year of motorsports photography for you? Like, what does that look like?
Well, considering I live in the middle of like the ocean on an island, the challenge is most of my stuff is Europe or US based. So I do probably 8 or 10 races a year. I mostly do endurance stuff now, purely because I'm old and I'm slow. So the endurance races are a minimum of 6 hours. So I can actually get around and things like that. So
he's got time to go home, have a nap, check his SD card, go, oh crap, I missed the shot. I'm going to have to go back to the circuit, and the race is still going.
Exactly. And I do. I mean, the jewel in the crown for my racing year is always the Le Mans 24-hour in June. So. I said to my darling wife, I do that once, and that was 2001. So this is my 22nd trip back, and probably my last one. But so yeah, my racing involves maybe 10 or 12 events a year, spaced out through the year. Then there might be some races here or some festivals. I tend to do a lot more historic festivals, which fits in with my age group. Cars that I used to photograph as a kid, are turning up now in a historic festival. So I've done a couple of those in the US. So yeah, I mean, it's not a full year. It's not so intense. Like the beginning of the year is quite busy, middle slow, and then it ramps up towards the end. But it goes now from like January to early December. In the old days, it used to be season started in March and finished in end of October. So. The problem is that the off season, the gap is getting shorter. So not that I'm complaining, but all my mates who are usually based in the States or in Europe, the flights they're going. My mates from the States, they go to Europe. Oh, 7-hour flight. Oh my goodness, the jet lag. And I'm going, just don't even talk to me about that.
Yeah,
22 hours to get to Europe. My shortest flight of the year is Japan, and it's still 10 hours. Yeah. So don't get me wrong. I'm very, very grateful to be able to do it. I enjoy the travel. Whilst it's a little bit difficult sometimes, but I enjoy my racetrack family. They're amazing. They keep an eye on me and make sure I don't do too many stupid things. So yeah, that sort of gives you an idea of what I do. And then in between that, obviously I've got a camera in my hand nearly every day. I'm out doing my exercises, mandated by my doctor and my physio, doing my exercises, and I've always got a camera with me. So
it's interesting, Andrew, and we will roll back and talk about your early years and your inspirations and your history and those sorts of things. But it is interesting following your socials. Often I'll see you, there'll be a batch of a race that will go on for a few days. You'll be posting images, and then it'll kind of go back into, well, here's some local sea baths in Sydney. And you're often capturing those first thing in the morning. Is that also part of your I guess your routine to stay active and to stay relatively healthy?
It's part of my we've spoken on this before about photography is a big part of my mental health strategy. I've been dealing with chronic pain for 30 years. And I know that you've experienced that as well, Greg. So I mean, we've spoken on this with your blogs that we did a few years ago about shooting through adversity and stuff like that. It's more, you need a distraction because, as you know, I mean, chronic pain will never go away. It's always with you. So I think my photography side, if I can distract myself with my photography, which I obviously love, then that's great. And if I can combine it, those early morning rides, that's a combination of me. If I don't feel well, I'm still pushing myself to get out of bed, get on my bike, and go down and take a picture, because it works twofold. I'm getting the exercise that will maintain my ability to do this. I'm also, it's very good for my mental health, looking at the sunrise and things like that. And also I have this whole, what's that? What do the young kids call it? FOMO, fear of missing out on a beautiful sunrise, when I'm going, oh, damn it, I should have got out of bed. So there's that motivation to combine my required exercise, help my mental health, and obviously then just enjoy my photography.
I think there's something really lovely, and it crosses many boundaries between being something that's romantic, something that's primal, something that's intrinsic to how our body clocks work, but also just something that inspires you to get up just to see the sunrise every morning.
Yeah.
And that you still got that motivation as a photographer to get up every morning and shoot, the same old sun that goes around and be back in 24 hours, but you're still finding that motivation to be out there despite, what you may wake up feeling. I think that's really inspirational. And I think there's a lot for others to think about with that sort of thing. It doesn't have to be that you are traveling to Le Mans to find inspiration in your photography. It could just be getting up and shooting the sunrise every single morning. As a form of meditation almost,
If that's all I was able to do, then that's what I'd be happy with. It's the fact that you've got, that scene down in Narrabeen changes every morning. Every morning I go down there, it's something different. So, to have that opportunity, and that I'm very, very grateful to live where I do. But, it's also that form of motivation, get out of bed, go and take a picture. But I've had a recent operation on my ear, trying to address some balance issues and things like that. And I haven't been allowed on the bike, and I haven't been feeling well enough to get on the bike. So then the last week was the morning, I think the whole week of amazing sunrises. And of course I get up in the morning, look out the window, and it's beautiful. And I'm just kicking myself going, maybe I should have walked, maybe I should have driven, or maybe, and
get a cab still. I can still get a taxi.
Well, yeah. And then the thing is, I'm trying to get this light beam out of my way. So then the issue is that I refuse to look at our local Facebook pages for that whole day, because fear of seeing what I missed out on. So yeah, it's and that hasn't changed in 40 years. I'm still still the same photographer I was. So.
I love that.
Very cool.
Just quickly, Greg, that I'll just say g'day to a couple of people in the live chat. If you're joining us live, jump in the live chat. This is a unique format. Our show is live, which means you can actually jump in the live chat and ask Andrew questions through the interview. We may or may not pull them up, depending on how nice your question is. We'll pull them up. We've got Philip Johnson in the chat. He says, good day, gents. Good morning, Philip. Always here first, pretty much. Love it. And Dennis Smith, School of Light, says, brum, brum. Was lucky enough to meet Andrew and chat cars. What a humble and sharing gentleman. Good to have you, Dennis.
Isn't that nice?
So yeah,
nice.
If you're listening,
we like Dennis.
We do love Dennis. If you're listening, and if you're listening later on, like YouTube later on, or on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you can still comment on YouTube, and we'll see if we can get Andrew to answer any questions or whatever later on. So don't be scared. But if you're with us now.
Speaking of which, Justin, where are you coming from? Because it's almost like you're in some sort of cell, maybe.
Yeah, I got locked up. They were nice enough to let me have my MacBook so I could still do the podcast, but I got locked up last night. No, I'm in the van. I probably can't really show you guys much, but I'm in the van. I'm in the van in Dinner Plain, so up on the top of Mount Hotham, coming to you via Elon's Starlink. Thank you, Elon. Send you my heart. I won't do the thing.
No, don't do it.
I won't do it. I'm not that silly. And yeah, that's me. We've been traveling around a bit. We're making our way home from the coast back over to Bendigo. So that's why I'm in a strange setting today. And I don't have my normal roadcaster and mic and headphones and stuff. I feel a little bit naked without my podcasting stuff. I need the things, but I broke my microphone. So now I'm just coming to you from the MacBook.
You know what I think is most impressive about this whole situation is that I actually look more tanned than you for once.
I know, the white balance is off.
And I'm usually like white blue kind of, tan level.
It's been it's been so peaceful here. I decided to do the podcast with the door of the van open, the sun's coming up, and it's been dead quiet. And now, like, garbage trucks and lawnmowers and stuff are all starting. I'm like,
reality. It's just like being at home when your staff show up to do the garden. Andrew, Justin has a crew of staff. He doesn't do anything.
crew of
I'm
stuff.
one of them.
His name's Al, and he mows my lawns. He's a really nice guy.
Cool.
Yeah, cool. Last person in the chat before we get back to Andrew. Dave from Tassie Digifrog is in the chat. He says, so many gems after just 10 minutes. Photography truly is so much bigger than just pressing a shutter. It becomes that friend that's always there. This podcast is fantastic for highlighting this. Thanks.
Oh,
Cool.
thanks, Dave. That's awesome. Now, Andrew, you mentioned earlier that you've been with Fujifilm for 32 years.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. For the kids listening along at home, for the young folk, that's what we call a career.
Pretty much.
Staying in the one job for more than 12 months.
But the job hasn't changed. It has changed. I mean, the position may have stayed the same, but what the equipment and stuff I'm working with, and that was to keep it. I'll explain it a little bit better. I mean, my role at Fuji was always in the printing side, machines and all our photo labs. So if you got your photos printed in the 90s to 2000s, it was probably on a machine that I installed. That side of it was always thing. But I always dovetailed my photography in that. I shot film with Canon for many years, but always in that camera was always Fujifilm. So even while I was doing my racing stuff early in the 90s, we were fortunate enough to get supplied with some Fujifilm for some big projects. So I was always walking out of work with a box of film under my arm and taking up my all the butter compartments in my fridge with all the film ready to go. So
that's where film lives. It's universal.
It was always and when you get your slides processed back in the little boxes, if you took the actual film out of the canister, 6 rolls of film fitted in one of those slide boxes, and they fitted in your butter compartments in your fridge. So when I went digital, we all suddenly had all this extra space in my fridge. So, and then so with my racing and all my other ambassadorship, that's obviously a completely separate role. But there are some overlaps where people at work will ask me to assist with things, and I'm obviously more than happy to do that. But when I do my racing and stuff like that, it's always I take annual leave from my career, and then go and do my racing, and then come back and continue on with whatever projects I had on my plate before I left.
So let's roll back a little, because I want to also cover off your early days as a photographer, and obviously your introduction to working with a brand like Fuji, but even just I want to get to what the industry was like back then, because we all kind of fall into this now where everything is so accessible, everything is online, we can order things, in our sleep. I love my partner Sasha, but sometimes I wake up and my phone with the Afterpay is this close to my face. I don't know what's going on, but everything is very accessible and easy to get to, and it wasn't always that way, and sometimes you just had to make solutions yourself. We will get to that. Let's roll back a little further, and I want to talk to you about your earlier inspirations into photography. What was your background like? Was it an artistic family? Was there something that someone special, like a teacher or a mentor or even a parent, who inspired you to be a creative person?
I think it came from my grandmother and my father. They were always had a camera. My first early memories was using my grandmother's Voigtlander 35mm. So I think it came from there. But essentially, I just wanted to record moments. I wanted to record memories. I wanted to, look back and go, oh, geez, I wish I'd taken a photograph of that. I can't draw. I can't sculpt. I can't paint. I can't write. So, I didn't have much left. So photography was always very close to my heart. I shot, on that Voigtlander for quite a while. My dad always had a camera. So it sort of progressed from there, but totally self-taught. I didn't do any courses back then. It was, when I started, it was, chisel and stone tablet, so I didn't do any courses. I just read a lot of books, made a lot of notes, well before the days of, now the young kids go, oh, just look what I took, what settings I took that on. I had to go to my notebook.
Yep. I kept a notebook too.
Yeah. You shot a roller 36 and you go frame 7 was this one. And then when you get it all back and you have to go through and analyze what worked and what didn't work.
Yep.
That was, and it's so funny when my daughter goes, but why did you do it that way? I said, because there was no other, option. That's the way we had to do it. And it's so funny to watch things come full circle now, where people are still going back to shooting film. So I mean, that was the early days, and I used to race motocross as a youth. Was never very good, and the motorcycle club I was in, I fell off one season, was sitting out a few races, and just picked up my camera and started taking pictures.
And that's how you got into motorsport.
Yeah, of my friends falling off, and I realized that photography hurt a lot less than falling over and getting run over. So I just continued to do that, and I became their official photographer. So you'd go to the club meeting with a big board of 6x4 photos that you had printed up down at the local lab, and sold them to the riders. So from there, it just went. I kept hassling it was at Oran Park, which doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately. But I knew all the media managers and things out there, and I think 1988, before either of you were born, the World Superbike.
Justin,
Superbike.
yes, Justin. He's got a full-grown beard right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, great. So I did. That was 88, and I asked them if I could get a media pass, and it was I went from club level motocross racing to being accredited at a World Superbike Championship, and I think they said yes because I'd obviously been doing the hard yards with the club level. They knew I wouldn't do anything stupid, and they obviously wanted more promotion for this event. So my first accredited event as an official photographer was a World Superbike Championship round at Oran Park in 1988. So went from there, got a few things published. Went to the Grand Prix, I think in '89 as a spectator, and got a few shots from the crowd that no one else got of a crash. '89,
so that would have been in Adelaide still.
Adelaide still, and I submitted a bunch of pictures to a company called Chevron Publishing, who did racing car news and a whole bunch of really cool titles back in the day. So they liked my pictures, and then of course I had, being a incredibly published photographer of maybe like 2 photos now, I went, well, can you give me a season pass for the next year, and I'll shoot for you, and they said yes. The fools. So that was 1990, and I shot with them as a preferred freelancer for 20 years, more than 20 years. Shot Adelaide Grand Prix for the last 3 years it was there, which was amazing for the organisers. And then they took me to Melbourne, and I shot F1 in Melbourne till 2016.
Can I just jump in there, Andrew, just before we move any further along? I just want to roll back a little bit. So you used to race motorbikes. That's where your initial love of motorsport, or is race a bit of a strong term?
Race was a bit of a strong term. Rode around trying not to get in everybody's way, I think was probably a better way to describe it. But I'd always followed motorsport as a kid. I remember sitting on the hill at Oran Park as a kid in the early mid-70s with my uncle, watching the touring cars there. So I was always interested in motorsport, but it was motorcycles that started it. And photographing the motorcycles, that was my first couple of years. I did some work for Two Wheels magazine and a few other bits and pieces. So
I think I remember Two Wheels.
The cars.
I used to do a paper round and deliver magazines to all the local factories. So I used to get all the car magazines, a lot of Playboy and Penthouse. A couple of those might have slipped into the gap under my mattress, but mostly motorsport and those sort of magazines were huge back in the day.
It was really cool. I mean, and obviously shooting film, you were also then looking through the viewfinder, trying to remember, okay, where's the fold of the page going to be? So if you were shooting something, you'd go, well, I can't put the car there because it will disappear in the fold. Or if I'm doing, as I said before, I'm a motorsport photographer, but I love landscapes, I love portraits. So I combined my love of those genres into my motorsport. So I would do things like, you'd see a double page spread and you'd go, right, I can put a small car, big sky, and then they can type over that.
Yeah.
So it'll form the whole background of the page rather than have white on the page. So, but the problem is when you're imagining that, you're going, okay, where's the fold? Where's the staples? When you're shooting, and the kids today, they wouldn't understand that. Like, when you're shooting stuff that's actually being in print, all the things you had to think about, where the gutter of the magazine, where the gutter of the page was going to be, where the masthead was going to be. Like, you're shooting a cover, you're shooting vertical. Looking through the viewfinder, you've got to imagine where the actual header of Racing Car News or Motor Racing Australia later in the day, where that was going to go. So you couldn't fill the frame. You had to allow room.
Andrew, imagine also having all of those elements in mind, plus working with film, and I'd be fascinated to hear from you. How do you, keeping those things in mind? Oh, the staples are going to go here, the gutters here, type the text is going to go here, whilst trying to shoot something moving that fast with a film camera.
Yeah.
So it's not, like you said, it's not necessarily a spray and pray. Justin shoots a lot of mountain bike stuff, and he's often shooting at a high burst rate to capture that, because they're coming around a hill so like a corner or a burn so fast. And you would have felt the same, but shooting with film. Tell us a little bit about that process. Like, how did you work with the limitations that you had at the time?
Well, three frames a second. That was the motor winder back in the day. 3 frames a second, or you had and you had manual focus lenses, so you'd have to pre-focus on the track and wait for them to come into frame and push the button when it was in focus, because you couldn't track it. There was no AF. Shooting a roll, making sure when you're walking down to the start, looking at your camera, going, I've only got 12 shots left. Do I take a gamble and shoot the start with 12 frames, or do I sacrifice those 12 frames and put a new roll of 36 in? Now I put a card in my camera, and I've got 500 frames or 600 frames. So
the other thing with film is I'd love to. It's probably more so with motorsport. You're probably always shooting at a higher film speed, ISO, ASA, whatever it was. Called before I was born. So you probably often, I assume, was it like sort of 400 or 800 most of the time, but you also had that variability of, say, weather. Like if it clouded over, things change. You just throw away half a roll so that you can put in a higher film speed for the darker conditions or something. How did that work?
Pretty much. Say I was shooting, we used to call Velvia film, which I love using on my Fujis now. I mean, as a film simulation. I shot it as a film, as a roll of film. So it was 50 Velvia 50, and it was basically Man's. We called it Brave Man's film, because as soon as you put a roll of film in the camera, there'd be perfect blue sky, and then a 3x3 foot piece of cloud would come over and sit over the sun for that whole race. So as soon as you put and you'd pull the roll of Velvia out of the bag and look around, going, is there any cloud coming? No, and put it in, because you're right. If you had that roll of Velvia in and you're halfway through the roll and the cloud came over, the only option you had was to go arty, like do slow shutter speed stuff. Because and then for those 15 shots, and I hope you got some good ones, and then change the roll. But even now, like shooting, like I have my fabulous Fujifilm X-H2s. Like to thank my sponsors. Honestly, this thing I shoot it at. I shot some stuff the other month in Qatar, like at 2,500 ISO. And it was brilliant. Like in my day in the film, and it's still difficult because as a film photographer and an old photographer, I go, there's a little voice in my head going, don't go over 400. Whatever you do, don't go over 400. And now, I'm getting better at it. to go to shoot higher ISOs, but it's, you know, there's that mentality of when we were shooting, and when you looked at the 400 ISO film on the light box, it was like golf ball size grain, you know, even back then. So yeah, so the tech is obviously, and that's why I think, you know, there's so many people now saying, oh, the AF needs to be improved, this needs to be improved, and I'm going, yeah, but I shot with no AF, I shot with motor winder, no, nothing, yeah. So I'm grateful for any sort of autofocus, to be honest. So yeah, I think it's people can get hung up on the tech, and especially new photographers, if they've only ever shot digital, I don't think they can relate. You know, whereas someone who's shot film for so long can relate to like how good we've got it now.
Yeah, it's true.
But it is a double-edged sword, though, because like back in the day, I would shoot a race. I'd shoot 20 rolls of film, maybe on a weekend, which is not much. I'd be given a shot list from my editor. Okay, we're doing features on this, you know, say Craig Lowndes. So we need a headshot. We need one of them in the car. We need some stuff on track. We need, you know, atmosphere and all this. So you'd go and shoot that, and that helped me a great deal to minimize how much film I was shooting. So because I knew that every shot that I was taking was going to get used, and as a freelancer, that was key. So, but you know, you shot all that. You shot 20 rolls of film. You'd fly home from wherever. You'd go to Vision Graphics in Crow's Nest in Sydney. Drop the film in the night box. They would actually process the film and cut and sleeve it the next day. Send it to my office. I would go home that night, sit on a light box, cut the individual frames out, mount them, label them. Then the next morning, I'd go to work and send them via DHL to an agency in England, as well as my magazine here by DHL.
To be scanned?
To be sent over. I send the originals.
Right, okay.
So, you know, and the only way you could really do, you know, only way to have a duplicate back in those days was to take another frame. So if you're taking a portrait, you'd take extra frames, so you'd have 3 or 4 of the same one.
Interesting. Sorry, I was just going to say, it just reminds me, I don't know if you guys have seen, is it The Secret Life of Walter Mitty?
Yeah.
I watched
the film.
Yelena hadn't seen it. We watched it night before last. I was like, yeah.
It's a fascinating, for those of you that haven't seen it, just a quick synopsis. Basically, it stars Ben Stiller and, what's his name? He's in Severance. Anyway, Ben Stiller is the lead character. He plays Walter Mitty, and he works for Time Magazine, which is shutting down, sadly.
He's a negative asset manager.
Negative asset manager, and he's working with this renowned film photographer who still only shoots film. He won't shoot digital, and he tells Walter, "I'm sending you a frame that will save the magazine, or that should go on the final cover at least of Time Magazine." And the frame is missing, and he can't find it. And the whole movie is about this journey about finding this elusive frame. But it's really wonderful because it harkens back to the day where you had to be really careful about what you did with your negatives. You know, you didn't have dual SD cards. You didn't have instant on-the-field hard drive backup or SSD backup, which you can get now, where you can just drop your SD card into an SSD drive and it will copy everything within, you know, a minute. You never had any of that. It was, you know, it either worked or you screwed up.
Yeah, we shot, you know, you shot, and obviously you didn't know what you had. You know, until you had it processed. So you could be going to the publisher, the editor, I nailed that, I've got it great, you know, and then you get back and it's like, ooh, no, maybe not. Yeah. And you're trying to salvage something out of, you know, what you ended up shooting. So, but yeah, and then back in those days, between practice sessions, the only thing you could do was charge your batteries and have a cup of coffee, because the work really started after the race. Unless you were shooting, I did some stuff for the newspapers occasionally, and so you'd have to go down to the medical center and process your film by hand in the dark. You know, and make a dark room, process the film by hand, look at it on the light box, find the frame of the checkered flag shot, scan it on a 56K modem to the newspaper. One frame, and that whole process took took 2 hours. I know.
Yeah.
When I say to people, I'm like one of the old guys from the Muppets, you know, in the front row, Waldorf and Statler. When I go back in my day, and they go, here we go.
Yeah, it is interesting. But it is also, I think what's great is, and one of the things I love about celebrating these stories on the podcast is that we get to add a little bit of perspective from time to time around the privileges that we have as current day photographers. You know, I mean, yes, gear is expensive, and you know, it can be just as technically challenging, but there is a lot of privilege involved in today's photography. You know, when I learned film photography in the darkroom, like that was the greatest experience of my life. Like I still recall those days of dodging and burning and printing my own stuff and just seeing it appear, like basically learning chemistry as part of a visual creative field was, you know, we kind of took it for, like, looking back, I know I took it for granted. I was a dickhead. Like I was 18 running around bumping into things, like, but you know, we were taught chemistry to create something which was really magical. So there is a lot of privilege, and it's not to say that it's not deserved, and that, you know, kids these days don't understand photography, but
that's me. Yeah. But no, but like you're saying before, it's more, I think you used the right word. It's a more romantic era. You know, back in the day, like, you know, I trashed my poor mum and dad's outdoor laundry by turning it into a darkroom and putting chemistry stains all over the washing machine and stuff. But you know, the fact that you go out there, spend a couple of hours, make a print for the camera club, whatever competition that night. But the joy you get when you see it in the tray, and you see you're watching it, and you watch it develop, and you go, that's really cool, that whole manual process. Now kids don't, I'll just add a filter to it, or I'll do this, and you know, times move on, and I'm getting better at social media and stuff like that, thanks to my darling daughter. But I still sometimes I miss those days where, you know, you never know what you shot until, you know, you get it back from the farmer, get it back from the chemist, or get it back. You know, so
it is interesting.
And I think,
although I do adopt some of those practices in my street photography. So I try to stick with very minimal on my, as you know, we've talked about this. We both have X70s, possibly, arguably the greatest camera ever made, digital camera. You know, I have access to I have aperture on the lens. I've got my shutter speed, and I've set my ISO to the rear little toggle dial, and you know, and I rarely look at the back of the screen when I'm doing street, because I feel as a street photographer that also draws attention to me. That yes, I'm purposely taking photos of you. I'd rather just walk and shoot and have a look that night or the next day. In fact, when I do street walks with camera clubs now, I tell them, if you can, turn your LCD off. You know, I'll let you guys use your EVF, but no, what do they call it? Chimping? Is that the term? Chimping?
I don't know what that is.
What is it, Justin?
So yeah, it was a big talk when I sort of got into photography, which is quite late. Even, you know, like I didn't get into photography until my late 20s. So that was well into the digital era. My first camera was a Canon 60D digital. So they were already like super capable digital cameras when I started. And the big sort of buzzword around that time, there was two things. There was people that were shooting and burning. So if you just took photos and didn't edit them and didn't look through them, you just gave everyone all the JPEGs, you're a bad photographer. And if you sprayed and prayed, if you just took way too many photos than needed to do the job, rather than taking your time, you're a bad photographer. And if you chimped, you were a bad photographer. And that was essentially, you know, we were sort of learning the ropes of wedding photography at the time. And it was basically, and I definitely get what these more experienced photographers, probably people like yourself that had grown up through film and learnt to be far more confident in their abilities in the moment, were saying to younger photographers like us, or newer photographers, in the middle of a wedding ceremony, don't be looking at the back of your camera to see what the photo looks like, or whether your settings are right or whatever. Watch what's happening. Look at the action. Don't be looking down and chimping through your photos. Oh, did I get it? Oh, did I get it? When something else beautiful is happening right in front of you. And it was a good message, but it kind of got pushed into this kind of basically if you looked at the back of the camera, you were a bad photographer, which
isn't
as
true.
it's just another tool that you can use for, you know, if you need to figure out if you're getting the shot or not. So yeah.
Of course. I mean, look, I'm a technophobe. I love the technology that is in the modern cameras. And obviously with my relationship with working with Fujifilm in Tokyo closely and developing some of the X series cameras, you know, I've been grateful to be involved in that process of improving AF and doing all the rest of it. But at the end of the day, I shoot full manual. I love my electronic finder in all my cameras. The fact that, you know, if I run and set a film simulation, like on the optical in the old days, the optical camera, I could still set it to black and white, but I'm looking through an optical finder and I'm still seeing it in color. My brain wants to see it. My brain wants to see it in black and white. So the electronic viewfinders are amazing. I don't get hung up on the tech like the people. The first question whenever I do a presentation or something at a camera club or you know, or I get a new camera, they go, "Oh, how many megapixel is it?" And I always say, "Enough." Right? It doesn't. That's that obsession with having more and more megapixels and more tech. You know, my light meter in my camera, we have a love-hate relationship because I usually ignore it because I'm adjusting my settings, especially through an electronic finder, to what I want to, how I want it to look, and what I see is what I see is what I get. Shooting film for 20 years with an exposure latitude of what, half a stop or a stop, f-stop. Yeah, if you got that wrong, it was in the bin. There was no post-production, there was no Photoshop, there was no RAW, there was nothing. So I shoot JPEG only. I don't shoot RAW. So, and I'm confident enough in my ability that I can get it as close to right in camera. And the reason for that is twofold. One, I don't have the time to do extra processing, especially at the track. And two, I'm rubbish at Lightroom and Photoshop. So I try and get it as right as I can in the camera.
So you're telling me that on your, if we go to like your Instagram or your website or something, that the motorsport photos that we look at, they most likely were shot JPEG straight out of the camera. Pretty
much, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get this dot out of the middle of my forehead. There you go. Yeah, like I just, as I said, I try and get it right in camera because of just the speed with which I need to get some of the. But even my, you know, the stuff I do down at the pool in the morning, it's all JPEG. Fuji's relaunched what's called a Fuji X app, which is the app that connects to all our X series cameras, and that's much improved from the previous version, as Greg will attest to.
Absolutely.
Well, it was so funny. I mean, as an ambassador, I was always, people were saying to me, you know, often being complimentary about our cameras and things like that, but then they were saying, "Oh, but the app sucks," and I was sort of going, you'd go, actually, yeah, it does. It did.
Yeah, but most brands do.
That's what I was going to say. Almost every camera brand's app is terrible, except
they need to do better.
Leica's was pretty good. And I was like, how are these? I mean, Leica's cool and all, but like, how are they leading the pack when it comes to apps? Like,
I know, but our app is our app's really cool now. So
awesome. Yeah, it's much better.
It's much better. It uses Bluetooth Connect and then some other wizardry. But
although having said that, Andrew, I will say this, that I started using the original Fuji app when I got my XT1 maybe and my X70. I remember one of my earlier trips to Japan using that to transfer photos to my phone, so I could do quick dirty edits and put them on socials or send them to family or and at the time it worked. It was unstable and unreliable, but it worked. Like if you got a good run of it, like it. Oh yeah, it's obviously much easier now. It's all there's a not a barcode. What do they call it now? Gosh, I'm old. QR code on the box. Yeah. And you just you unpack your the Morse code.
Honestly, like so the app gets to the point now where I went to Tasmania a little while ago with my darling wife just for a holiday, and I took no laptop, and I shot JPEG only, transferred it to the phone in full res, made a couple of tweaks and posted it straight away. So, that sort of technology, that's about as much as I embrace, the tech. I said everything else, it's on my camera is M only. Taught my daughter to shoot manual. And she loves it, and she's a better photographer than me. But I just think people get hung up on all the tech. I actually have my original X100, which was the first camera that I got involved with.
Justin's still got one too.
I've got one.
It's brilliant. And I pulled it out of the drawer the other day, put a battery in it. It's 12 megapixel. Put one of my SD cards in it, and it went no. I went, oh, that's right. It's too fast. So
yeah, it's far too fast for it now.
Hunted through the drawer to find it like a 2 gig, 15 megabits per second card. Put that in it and went and took some pictures. Awesome, loved it. So I think whenever people ask me, megapixel, and then they say to me, oh, how do you find the dynamic range? And I go, it's there. It's doing what it's meant to be doing. Like, and histograms. I had presented at Castle Hill Camera Club the other night, Tuesday. And I said to me, just out of curiosity, how many people here shoot RAW? And everyone put their hand up. And then I said, and how many people look at their histograms on the camera? And they all put their hand up again. And I went, I don't know what a histogram does. And I'm sure that all of mine, because I'm ignoring my light meter, I'm sure it's
screaming
wrong.
at you.
It's screaming at me again. It's just like, what are you doing? I said, I don't know. I don't look at the thing. So, as I said, I'm so old school in that regard. But I said I appreciate the technology and the high ISO and all the rest of it, and I know when to use it to get a nice picture. But as to how it works,
nice,
not a clue.
Good to hear. Good to hear. So there's some level of cluelessness.
Oh, it's epic, and it's so funny because Warwick, who used to be the digital trainer here, he would sit down. He was determined. It was his life mission to teach me about phase detection or something on autofocus. And he said to me, he sat me down. He goes, right, Andrew, I'm going to explain phase detection, and he just watched my eyes to just roll back.
Yeah.
And he goes, when did I lose you? And I said, when you said, sit down, Andrew, I'm going to explain phase detection to you. And
Warwick was a very technical. I mean, that was his job, and he was a very technical shooter as well in his own work. Like, knew his stuff back to front.
Yeah.
Justin, do you want to jump to some comments because it's starting to build a little?
Yep, and it might lead us into a bit more of a gear discussion if that's okay.
Sure.
But so just a few comments. Dennis Smith says it's nuts. The Leica app perfect, Sony app absolute clusterfuck. How is that? Yeah, and same with Canon and Nikon. They just don't. They wouldn't connect properly, and I don't know. It's just weird interfaces. Anyway, Creative Photo Workshops. Glenn Lavender says JPEG only. Man after my own.
I know, Glenn.
Yeah. The Drunk Wedding Photographer from California. Good to see you. He is a full-time. Shoots only film at weddings still now.
Oh, wow.
Like he's sort of a full analog wedding photographer. And he says, I love film, but not the darkroom, not for me. And I guess they're different skills. Glenn also says it's not the tool, it's the tool using it.
Yeah, thanks, Glenn.
Sometimes it can be.
It can be, yeah.
Jim's in the comments too. Jim's another co-host, photographer, wedding photographer, boudoir photographer, sports photographer, and
he's also part of Lucky Straps.
Also part of Lucky Straps. Hey team, sorry I couldn't be on today. Keen to listen to this one later on.
Hey Jim.
Yes. Now the question that might get us into a bit more, which I think Dennis is alluding to. You've already answered it a little bit, but. He says, when you guys were chatting, you had a discussion about the type of gear, and it was refreshing that you talked about using gear that others might think is basic for super high-end motorsport. And can you talk a little bit about what really matters for this type of work?
Sure. I mean, as I said, I shot Canon for 20 years. So, all through the original EOS, T90s back then in the old days, A1s, F1s, all the manual focus stuff through to the autofocus things, and then obviously into the digital age. since 2015, I've been shooting Fuji only. So even with my motorsport. And I think what I'm most impressed with was the fact that in my 20 years with Canon, no one asked me or asked for my input, or not any other photographers that I knew of. They would just release a new camera, obviously with some new features and things like that, but not really ask what we would like, or what could be done to improve it. And you'd say, well, what have you made different on this camera? Oh, we've improved the AF a little bit, and we've moved that button over there. And you sort of go, well, why did you do that? Because it's now not in our reach. It makes it more difficult to use the camera. So there wasn't really that connection, in my experience anyway. I'm sure they were speaking to some people, but with Fuji, especially trying to develop it for motorsport, or I was involved in a lot of the testing for the early XT ranges and things like that, purely because they wanted to improve the autofocus, because it wasn't good enough in its infancy. So in about 2015, they released the T2, I think, and the AF algorithm was really good. So I gave them some feedback, myself and a bunch of other X Series ambassadors around the world. There was 3 or 4 of us involved in motorsport, so we were the core group with that. So for me, for the high-end motorsport now, I mean, I've got H2 and H2s. I run them. One's the 26 megapixel super fast one, the X-H2s, with 40 frames a second and all the rest of it, and a bunch of other technical things that I don't understand. And then the H2 is the 40 megapixel one. For me, the key for motorsport side of it is the AF. Fuji's got to a point now where the AF with subject detection and all the rest of it is a game changer. As soon as they came with subject detection on the H2s, I did some testing during COVID for them on my T4 with made a bit of a test mule to develop the algorithm. So I did some stuff in lockdown where I could just go and photograph some surfers and moving stuff to help them develop that algorithm. So when they put it in the H2s with the subject detection, huge game changer for me. So that made it didn't make it easier to shoot, but it made it, I could concentrate on framing, I could concentrate on a lot of other things, and the AF would do its job. Whereas back in the old days, your brain had to multitask, was trying to focus and compose at the same time. So, but I mean, obviously these things are built really, really well. I've taken them around the world. This is 2022. I got it early to do some testing in secret, where I was standing at a racetrack in America, and I really wanted to tell everybody how good it was, but I couldn't because it wasn't released for another few months.
Yeah, I've been there.
But I did the testing, and they said to me, just use it for practice. We're not sure about the algorithm and all the rest of it. And I used it in the first practice session, and I used it for the rest of the event because it was so good. And this is actually the original. This is the original body, 180,000 frames or something on it now. So yeah, I mean, the question was, what's the most important thing for the high-end motorsport? It's for me, it's that AF performance, not necessarily frame rate, because it's 40 frames a second. I never use it. I use maybe maximum 10 frames a second. Yeah. Because, and again, if I'm panning at a corner, I'll track it, obviously with autofocus, and especially through stuff I'm doing stuff through trees. We can customize it to avoid obstacles and do all the rest of the fancy stuff. So, but I only take 1 or 2 frames when it's in the position I want. I don't. I'm standing next to a guy and I can hear the shutter go off, and the car's not really even in view. It doesn't do your photography any good, because you're not perfecting your art, and you're also going to have to download all that and weed through all the rubbish to get the 2 frames that you should have shot just the 2 frames of in the first place. So, I don't feel with a shooting JPEG. I think I've got 64 gig cards in my cameras. I never go anywhere near filling them.
Wow,
that's crazy.
Yeah,
because some guys shoot, I don't know how many, like some ridiculous, like 5 or 6 or even 10,000 frames in a 3-hour practice session, and you're going, dude, like, what are you doing? Like, you're just going to have to wade through that. Why don't you just wait? And again, I get the old man yelling at clouds. So,
No, but I think it's impressive. You know, you're shooting pro grade motorsport, and you're delivering JPEG files. Like it's
I
quite
love that.
inspirational, really. Like that you know, and obviously you've invested the years. You've trained yourself. You know your gear backwards. You're not upgrading your camera every 6 months. You're still using the OG X-H2. And what did you say? 180,000 frames. Like most pro photographers would start to get nervous and move on their digital camera because technically shutters and sensors only have a certain lifespan. And you know,
I would argue, Greg, most pros don't. Like Jim and I, we used to drive the wheels off the thing. You know, like people.
Yeah,
it was
I
the other
guess.
way around, actually. It was we would talk to amateurs, especially when we went to sell gear, and we'd be like, "Yeah, it's got 250,000 clicks on the shutter," and they'd be like, "Oh, well, I'm not going to buy it because it'll probably explode or whatever." And we're like, "Dude, our other one's got 500,000." You know, like,
I know.
you know, like, and worst case, you put a new shutter in, it's $800. So I think it might actually be a little bit the other way, where a lot of the pros they just keep driving them until the wheels fall off. Sometimes,
true. I guess, and they are a financial investment. So
that's it.
You know,
if you want to run a business,
I've had never.
But I think for Andrew, who has access to Fujifilm's that's stable.
I wanted to ask Andrew about. So if you can, oh, hang on, there's a garbage truck coming. Hold on.
Did I answer that question okay for Dennis? Was that?
Yeah,
I think you answered Dennis's question perfectly. I just wanted to sort of dig deeper into. Oh my gosh, there's another one.
Woohoo!
Such a relaxing, week away, Justin. Just
I'm just
in the mountain air.
Breathe it in.
Make sure they're doing the recycling properly. Make sure they're picking up that.
What I wanted to ask, basically, so for those that are listening that might be into motorsports photography, and they can extrapolate this out into their own camera brand, or maybe their Fujifilm shooters, just run through like what's the kit that you take away when you go on one of these assignments. Just sort of the main stuff that's in your bag that you use and what you use it for. Give us a rundown.
Too much is the answer. Too much gear. I have Fujifilm X-H2s and a Fujifilm X-H2, so just one of each body. A battery grip. These are all, I don't know if you can see that, they're all covered in vinyl, like a vinyl wrap, purely because my stupid arm braces rip the Jesus out of the plastic, so I always protect my cameras like that. A range of lenses, a range of zooms, primes. One interesting thing though, I'm guilty of carrying way too much gear. I have the beautiful. Imagine, you've seen my hands, Greg. Imagine how long it took me to put this on. Why did I do it to myself? It was this vinyl wrap that came from.
No, but it looks amazing.
So
that's so cool.
They're never going to miss me. So this is my precious 200mm f2. People get hung up on. I need a much bigger lens. I need this. I need that. 200 f2, which is on Fujifilm, is APS-C, so it's 300mm 300 f2, 1.4 converter, which gives me like in the old school 400-2.8. Yeah, it's more than enough for every racetrack that I go to, especially if I'm trying to do little car big scene. I'll often use a 50-140. I take a bunch of primes, which I shouldn't do because the Fujifilm's the X Series zooms are amazing, but I tend to shoot. I've got a 50 f1 for a lot of my nighttime stuff. Got 50-140, a range of wider primes. But what it was a good exercise, and it will probably be a good exercise for some of the listeners, is that on Lightroom, you can go and do metadata and go, okay, and isolate it by lens. I have a beautiful 8-16 mil zoom, Fuji zoom f2.8, absolutely gorgeous, really heavy. I took it away with me to the Le Mans 24-hour a couple of years ago, and I had it with me in my pouch in my photo jacket and carried it around for no apparent reason. Got back and I went, I can't remember how many frames I took with that lens. So I dragged it 20, how many 100,000 kilometers away. I took 2 frames with it. So the next year it stayed at home.
Yeah.
And I took an 18 mil prime. So, or I took the 8 mil XF 8 mil, which is a 3.5. It's a tiny little lens. So, you can get caught up with carrying too much gear, and it depends too. If I'm going to the pit lane, I'll take a few more primes and a few different lenses to shoot, driver portraits and things like that. I have a beautiful 90 mil f2, which is the equivalent of the old school 135 f2. I had a 135 f2 FD Canon manual focus lens, and I always use that for my portraits. So I carry that with me. So, but if I'm going out on track, I'll just take the 200, 50-140, and maybe I did use the 90 mil at night in Bahrain last year during a night race, and that was more than capable. So, so my gear, it's 2 bodies, a bunch of random bunch of lenses, but nothing too over the top. And I tested the 500 mil, the new 500 mil f5.6. I tested that in Japan a week before it was launched. My friends from Fujifilm Tokyo came to the racetrack with me in the shadow of Mount Fuji, and gave me the 500 to try, and it was too long. It was like a 750 mil equivalent. Everyone standing at the photo hole, and I was standing another 50 meters back. It was just too long.
That's the lens I had when we went to BFOP, Justin.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah,
it's
I had
beautiful.
the pre-production. It's a gorgeous lens.
Amazing piece of glass. But so I think having a shorter lens and a converter maybe is a good option.
Yeah. The other thing too, though, I will say this. That's your track kit, but all too often on your socials, I see kind of this collection of background images that you do. You'll be there'll be all of these. Oh, that's lovely. There'll be all
there, Andrew.
Is that the original?
No, that's the 6.
Oh, that's the 6. I was just going to say, often I see on your socials that it's not just the motorsport stuff. Yes, that will be what you're there to do, but often there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff, and there's a lot of stuff that you just wandering to and from the track, and you've got a day off, or you're a day, the race is over and you've got a day before your flight, and often I'll see you taking these amazing shots around the locations that you've been sent to. So I think it's great to see that there's that blend, that you're using your kit, not just here's the job, I brought the job kit, I'm doing it, but you've also got, maybe you've got your X100 or your X70 or something.
Say I go, because it's so far to travel anywhere, any destination I want to go to. I did a race a motorsport festival in California a year and a half ago, I think. A friend of mine works for Porsche North America, invited me over, and we did a bunch of pictures at this motorsport festival, and I had my racetrack kit with me. But then for the rest of the time, I had a couple of days in San Fran, and that was it. So the reason why I got the original X100 was purely because you don't want to be walking around like a city with a big Canon 5D Mark II or whatever it was in those days over your shoulder, and a big lens. It just looks obtrusive. You make yourself a bit of a target. This is the most unintimidating camera. Like I shot some beautiful things in Qatar, some beautiful stuff in alleyways and things like that with some of the locals, because they're not intimidated by the camera. And I feel so much freer by walking around with this, just that over my shoulder and a battery in my pocket, and that's all I need. And it also makes your photography. You have to zoom with your feet. You have to really think about it. So often people say to me, if you could just pick one camera out of the Fujifilm range, which one would it be? And it's going to be something like this. A fixed lens where it's not complicated. There's no stress. You don't have to worry about, if I change lenses, will it be a better shot? And you just go, well, no, this is the only lens I've got. I did when I went to Paris in 2012, and they gave me a pre-production X Pro 1, and the 3 lenses that were available at that point was an 18mm f2, the 35mm 1.4, the OG, and the 60mm macro. And I had all 3 of them with me, and I came away from Paris with some lovely pictures, but I got annoyed because I was changing lenses too much. Whereas the year before, I had the X100 and I couldn't do that. So, you know, I was fussing too much and overthinking it. So that whole mindset, you know, where you go, okay, this is the only lens I've got, I have to zoom with my feet, is what appeals to me with the X100. But I mean, if I'm fortunate because I'm obviously in a privileged position being an ambassador. I've got way too many cameras. My darling wife asked me the other week, how many cameras do you actually have? And I went, is I don't know an acceptable answer?
Or it's best you don't know.
But apparently, well, the thing is, I mean, I can't, again, being very, very fortunate to be involved with the development and testing of these things. The Fuji have done the lovely things like put my name on the serial number as my 100 to 400 has got A001 Hall as a serial number. So it's awesome. really cool, nice touches, and I can't sell those.
No,
and I've obviously got all every one of the X100 series. But to be honest, at the moment, I mean, I love analog. I love this. This is you know what my favorite camera at the moment is? Look at that. That's a Instax wide 400. And I reckon it's like Fuji. If Fuji went to Lego and said, make me a camera, that's what you get.
For sure.
This is, you know what I do? I take this to a party, a couple of packs of film in my bag, and this analog thing, and I take pictures, and they come out of the top, and I hand them to people. All my tech mates go, but what happened? Where's the raw file? Where's the digital? How can I edit it? How can you don't?
I reckon that would do Matt Crummon's head in.
But you go. How do I share it? I said, well, luckily, with the Instax thing, Fuji's got a suite of apps. There's one called Instax Up, which you can digitize those analog pictures and get your social media digitized fix on. But I love walking into somewhere and going, this is what I'm shooting with today. Here is the picture, and handing them a tangible print. Yeah. And they go, and all my tech mates go, but you can't edit it. I said, no, we couldn't edit in the old days. But I watch them; they shake. They're just like, I don't understand. How can I download it?
Yeah.
Said, you don't. So,
for those of you that Andrew, I was just going to say, for those of you that watched our Monday night episode, I put our good friend Matt Crummins into a slight mental breakdown by revealing that I bought a new camera on, when was it, Jay? Monday.
It was Monday.
I walked into a camera store, and I know the manager there quite well because I bought all of my Fuji gear through him. And I said, I want your dirtiest, cheapest digital point-and-shoot camera. And he sold me a $60. It had Ilford printed on it, but I'm sure that Ilford had nothing to do with it, other than the royalties for the name.
Yeah, licensing money from
just the licensing money. But otherwise, I'm sure I've seen that same camera with different brands on it. But and it's absolute garbage. But I had such a delightful time shooting with it and making what I had work. But our good friend Matt had trouble understanding that because he didn't see the point in shooting something with such a low megapixel and poor dynamic range and terrible grain. And
I think he was also triggered a bit because of the recent resurgence of as trendy cameras that are actually becoming more expensive because they're desirable, despite the fact that they're quite average cameras. And I think that side of it was getting at him pretty hard, more so. What I actually thought after we had that podcast, I thought if Greg had have been able to pick up just a random DSLR for $60, Matt might have had a different opinion on the whole project, despite the fact that it was more about, hey, you could just grab a camera, and use it on auto or whatever, and have fun shooting was kind of the point of the exercise. Not that it needed to be a trendy 90s point and shoot that's getting popular on TikTok.
But I think too, like it's not about everything doesn't have to be shot in massive high resolution. Everything doesn't have to be pin sharp. Everything doesn't have to be digital. I mean, I love. I'm a bit of an evangelist for Instax in particular, because I love it. It's so old school. You're living in the moment. You're handing out tangible prints, to someone. Which, I mean, the new generation are going, "What is this new technology?" I'm going, "Well, actually, it's been really around old. It's been around for a while, but watching them freak out when they go, but I haven't got a digital copy of it. Oh, but what if the eyes are closed in the photo?" And you go, "Well, you take another one." Like it's not, it's very hard for them to compute. And I think the fact that as a photographer, I don't need to have the highest resolution. Most of those shots down at the beach in the old days, Greg, was shot with my X70, 16 megapixel fixed lens, and I used to use the tilt screen on the back as the tripod. To stabilize it to do long exposure shots. So you could.
I did that yesterday with a fountain outside the National Gallery.
So it's and alluding back to the whole Glyn's lovely comment about it's the tool, not the tool, or it's the tool. It's like I always have a saying when I say to my friends, it's not the wand, it's the wizard. So or the wizard S, or whatever the appropriate comment is. But it's not the tech. You shouldn't be able. I can teach someone how to use a camera, but if they don't have an eye for it, then it's different. Then they're going to be just generic, pretty much vanilla type shots. But if you have someone who has an artistic eye, and they can take an artistic photo with anything. Regardless of whether it be digital, whether it be Instax, whether it be X Series, whether it be GFX, it doesn't really matter. And I think too, also people now when they go, "Oh, but you've taken this picture, these beautiful pictures at the party, and they're gone." Well, they're not gone. They're actually on a print, and you've handed it to the person that you took the picture of, and they have it as their memory. So, it's just that it's a concept they can't. But how to upload it? Well, you don't. So
and it's an interesting concept, though, isn't it? Because when we think about it in reality, given the speed at which we scroll through Instagram feeds, even if we had uploaded that image, let's say, for example, a bunch of people uploaded that image, they would have looked at it for 3.5 seconds and moved on, whereas the physical print would live on their fridge or attached to their mirror in their bedroom. Or, I've shot weddings in the past, smaller events and parties where I've taken either an Instax camera or I've shot with my Fuji, because the Fuji, as you know, compared directly to an Instax camera. And so I've just shot and the digital photos have appeared. And I, as part of the package that I offered, the people employing me to do the shoot, which was mostly friends and family, but even still, I would buy a black paged photo album, like just open pages, not the sort of slot in types, but just open pages and a white, like gel ink pen. And I'd say, well, I've taken your photo, your group shot, or your muck around shot, or whatever it may be. It's over there on the table next to all the birthday presents. Why don't you go grab your print and you can stick it in? There's a glue stick. You can stick it into the book and write a message. Perfect. For the birthday boy or the couple, and it was such a different delivery of a service, and it was such a different experience for them, because then, the 21-year-old kid or the couple or whoever it was got to walk away with this tangible book of all the crazy little quirky moments that maybe a traditional photographer might not have shot, but because it came out on a film and it was a fun thing that happened right there and there, and the small little group of people would run up to the printer laughing and giggling, and because it was such a unique experience. It changes the way that you kind of absorb images and appreciate them.
If I'm doing a portrait shoot or a fun shoot, this comes with this is completes the circle of life, as they call it. Like, this is a Instax printer, so I'll shoot with my X Series or my GFX, send it from the camera to my phone via the X app, and then open the app for this printer and print them out. You know, so people walk away at the end of the day with this bunch of photos, or you know, if we have a break in the shoot and we're having lunch or something like that, there's all these photos that they can take with them. And often you see them next time and they've got the print in the back of their phone case. It's all about having that. Every time they turn their phone over, they see that picture rather than have to open and scroll. So it's that physical, tangible link. And I think for me, the whole environment, the whole ecosystem, Fuji ecosystem, like you've got the X Series, the GFX, you've got Instax, and a lot of professional photographers using that, the air quotes, they tend to poo-poo, something with Instax, but I, as a live in the moment, have a bit of fun, I think it's just phenomenal, and they keep doing things like I've got access to this. I've got access to whatever camera I really want. But the one I've had over my shoulder the most in the last few months was that one.
It's your Lego toy.
Lego toy with AA batteries, and then you've got other things like this. I know you're coveting this one, Greg.
Yeah. My partner Sasha wants that one.
Is that the Evo?
That's the mini. That's the wide Evo, which is the best of both worlds. So it's basically that printer, but with a camera on it as well. So I can use it as both.
It's a hybrid.
It's a hybrid. So you basically take the picture. It records it on internal memory or a micro SD. So you don't have to. Whereas my Lego one, you push the button and it prints it. Obviously, this one you can choose what to print, and then when you want to print it, you crank the handle, which is so cool, and it prints out. So again, it's more about the theater of photography, and having and getting back to the reason why we are photographers. We that bright spot's following me.
It is.
We you getting back to the core of photography. It's fun. Like you have to. Are you enjoying it? Are you stressing about what resolution's that? How am I going to upload that? No, just have fun. Like get back to the real reason why we all do photography, or I do photography. Have fun. Don't stress about, some of my favorite images are either taken on my X70 or my X100 or an Instax, and they're not. Are they sharp? No. Does it matter? No. So, I just think people tend to get obsessed with the modern era. Oh, I must have it so I can upload it. I must do this. No, just stick it on your fridge. So
I don't know anyone like that personally.
No.
No.
Okay.
Not at all.
We
Andrew, just want to
great comments coming in, Greg. If we can for a second.
I just wanted to say, let's jump to some comments. But just before we do, just to remind everyone listening along at home that this is the Camera Life podcast. It's the 3rd of April, for crying out loud. Lots going on. April Fool a few days ago. If we get some time, we'll jump to some April Fool jokes.
Oh, yeah.
Other big news. Nintendo announced a new gaming console last night, which is pretty exciting for me. But other than that, make sure you like and subscribe and hit the bell notification, because when we're on the road stuff,
we're on the road to 1,000 subscribers.
We are on the road to 1,000.
We're at 983. So come on,
you can do it, team. You can do it, team.
When you're not subscribed, give us a little one. Come on.
Yeah, give us a little like and a little follow and a subscribe and all of that stuff. But yeah, don't forget, this is a live show. We love nothing more than interacting with you guys live. While we've got a guest, or even on our Monday night show. So that's a good segue. We also have a Monday night, the Random Photography Show, or as I somehow decided to start calling it, Open Mic Night. Because Matt Crumman seemed to have a few grievances to air. So
exactly what the show's for, though. It's perfect.
It is, yeah. It's about dialogue, and it's a safe space to do that. And we're all mature, and we're all like-minded, and we all learn from these experiences.
We're all what? Mature?
I think I said that. But let's jump to some comments. Do you want me to?
Oh no, I've got a bit of a rough plan here. There's so many. I don't know what direction.
All right, you go with your thing.
Yeah, there's a couple that might take us into a longer discussion. But first of all, and it's basically a who's who of photography in here. Let's start with Bruce Moyle. He says people don't live in the moment anymore. They want the ability to replay and share the moment. Brands have pushed that for years. Digital life made that cheap and way less special. He also goes on to say, I used to shoot Polaroid until the film disappeared at shoots to give to the models as a keepsake. Maybe I should start that again with Instax.
Yeah, why not?
Definitely.
Yeah. And going on more Instax talk, Dennis Smith says, Andrew, is there an Instax in the larger format that can do a 10-second exposure? I'd cut a nut off for that.
let's not go too. No, and keep your nuts. That's fine.
Yeah. And actually, so hold on, drunk wedding photographer. He says way past my bedtime for Monday show. I thought you were going to bed now. I was like, well, okay, we'll get to your question now, because he had an interesting question before we jump back to some more Instax talk. He wanted to know any good news from Fujifilm opening the film manufacturing plant in China. Will we see legacy stocks resurrected?
I haven't really been privy to those conversations, but the demand for film is increasing and increasing. So one would assume that there are plans afoot to restock a lot of that.
You would
stuff.
hope so, because the price is going up as a result.
Of course.
I mean, post-COVID, the price of film was astronomical. I remember how the stock just disappeared off shelves of Fuji, particularly Fujifilm. But yeah, you see it more and more in different places. But I do hope that this current trend, we saw, is it Ricoh brought out the i7 or 17?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Half frame film camera. We've talked a couple of times about we'd love to see Canon just bring out a remake of an old school film camera with some current edge tech in it, but it's still an analog film camera. I don't know whether we're going to see those products, but regardless, I do hope that the cost of film comes down and that more labs. We've had John Lumina on from Lumina Labs in Kyneton, Victoria. He took over the lab that used to be in Bendigo, not far from. Actually, it was where Justin and I first met. The very first time we met face to face was where that lab was.
Okay.
And I still remember that day, Justin, because in the background of the cafe where we met, there was, what was it? It was something records or City Records or something.
So that City Music was next to it, and there was Ghosty Toasty Diner.
And at the back was the lab, and they took us out and showed us it, which was really lovely. But I remember in the corner there was wooden cameras. I don't know where you got them, but they were like wooden models of cameras with lucky straps attached to them. Oh, were they?
Yeah,
they were really cool.
Have you still got them? I've still got some of them. They went around to camera stores all over Australia to be the displays for the straps. We made these timber displays, and then the straps would hang off the timber display with a camera, like a wooden camera on them, so you could see how it attached and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, look, a lot of the camera stores were awesome and displayed them sort of as planned, but then a few times I walk into a camera store and there'd be like a Peak Design strap hanging on our wooden camera and stuff like that. I was like, come on, guys. Come on. We had these wooden cameras hand chiseled.
Yeah.
Anyway, a few more comments that came through about Instax. Matt Palmer is in the chat, which is very cool. Says,
hey, Matt.
Loved Instax at our wedding. Some of our favorite photos on it. Taking the printed version to, is that Kyrgyzstan? Kyrgyzstan? Yeah, I wanted to say Kazakhstan too. Taking the printer to Kyrgyzstan with us to share photos with the locals. That's awesome.
That's brilliant.
Man, what else is coming through? I don't know. We've missed a heap. The only other one I wanted to bring up was from the ever-present J.S. Hanny, Jason. I took my OM1 to Phillip Island the last 2 years for the MotoGP, and the autofocus abilities of the camera blew me away. It's ridiculous how far things have come. Agree.
Yeah, totally.
I wanted to ask on gear, just before I guess we should also probably have a look at some of Andrew's photos at some stage. I wanted to ask, obviously you've got the ability, you mentioned GFX. it sounds like you've got some GFX gear, or if not, you've got the ability to use it if you want to use it. Have you shot any motorsport with GFX?
Yep.
And what was that like?
That was bizarre. It was really weird. Like last year, no, 2023. What are we in now? 2025. 2023. Again, whenever I go to Japan in September for the sports car race at Mount Fuji Speedway, I usually pop into Fujifilm to have a meeting or an Italian meal, as you do when you're in Japan. You go to an Italian restaurant.
I've done that.
Some of the,
Just out of curiosity.
The last 2 times I've been to Japan to see my friends in the design team and development teams in Fuji Square in Roppongi in Tokyo. I've been to an Indian restaurant and an Italian restaurant. I'm going. I think they're thinking we'll just. It's their excuse. They want to go to these restaurants, and they go, "Well, take the guy from Australia. That'll be fine." So
Roppongi has a very multicultural.
It was awesome.
A very multicultural. What do you call it? Like society in that. Lots of Indian, lots of Thai. Now
it was very funny. So I went there, and I was able to. Again, they gave me the GFX 100 Mark II. Yeah, not the S, the big one, with the grip on it. And I bought my 250mm, which I had with me. I don't think the 500 had come out at that point. And I took it to the racetrack, and they said, just try it. GFX for motorsport. It was phenomenal because basically it's got the same autofocus capabilities as maybe it's parallel to an X-H2. It's got all the subject detection. The speed was there for what they've managed to cram into that camera. It's phenomenal. So yes, it was perfect, and I shot a bunch of stuff, and I was really, really happy with it. Would I use it for motorsport? No.
Why?
Do I need a 100 megapixel file? Even if I'm shooting JPEG, it's a massive file. Look, maybe I would use it for pit lane and stuff like that. But on the track, would I use it? Probably not, because I've got my X Series. I've got all the kit that I need, and I would probably feel like I would need to bring both kits, and practically that's not the case, So there's enough restrictions. I have enough issues with trying to get my current gear on a plane.
But also the physicality of it, Andrew. As we, I found as a result of my physical limitations that I've downsized my kit so much. I basically go on street walks now with just an X70 and like you said, a spare battery in my pocket because it doesn't cause any physical impacts on me. But I would imagine shooting with the GFX, especially at something like Le Mans, where you're on track for 2 solid days at least. Plus all the before and after stuff. And you're carrying a camera that, granted some lenses, is it the 500, the XF 500 and the GFX 500 are pretty much the same camera in terms of size and weight?
Same lens, pretty much.
Pretty much. Like even the optical structure's, fairly close from what I understand. But, the bodies are twice as heavy at least as an X series.
And the reason, with my physical limitations, one of the main reasons to go mirrorless and go with the Fuji was obviously I love the result, but it was also size and weight. So I've sort of counteracted that by carrying a 50mm f1. Like seriously, I do question my sanity at some point, but my gear is definitely, with my Canon kit, it was weighing so much, whereas now it's it's far less weight and physical size. So look, would I, if I could shoot a full GFX kit on track? Maybe, but I think its limitations would be the weight and the size of me to carry it around all day. But as far as its capabilities were concerned, not a problem. It was more than capable. Oh look, that's my pictures. I love my portraits. I'm not going to lie. I shoot at that 90mm f2, and I think the only aperture it's ever been on was f2. So
Yeah.
you know, I don't think the other ones have actually ever been used. So that's Barry the Bat. He was in my wetlands around behind my house, and that's with the 500, the XF 500 mil. So really cool. Shooting a 750 mil equivalent handheld.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was at 250th of a second. That's the Aston Martin Valkyrie, which is the most amazing car you'll ever hear and see. So that was in Qatar. So V12, 6.5 litre, normally aspirated engine, and you can hear it from. Actually, I could have heard it from Australia, I think, if I was in Qatar.
Yeah,
it's just a sweet sound, and that's a racetrack where most of the races at night. The illumination on the track, as you can see, is quite phenomenal. So plenty of time to experiment with slow shutter speeds and panning. That was like a 40th of a second, I think. So you know, the 40th or 30th or
1/40th. Yep.
Yeah. So see, on my Instagram, I always put what I shot at, what camera, what lens, ISO, shutter speed, and aperture. And people go, oh, but why are you telling everybody that? And it's like, well, why wouldn't I? Oh, but they'll go and copy it. I said, oh, good luck. Off you go. Like, go and copy it. I don't care. I think it's. I did the same for all my camera club presentations. I put a lot of stuff on there so that they can see what I used, what in the Fuji range I used, and what lens and all the rest of it. And it just helps with their learning. I'm not going to be, but see if you can click on here's me pointing at the screen. That's not going to help. The camel, the camels with the pigeons.
Yeah,
that was with the X100, and I had Nigel, my trained stunt pigeon. He led his flock through the frame at the right.
Good old Nigel.
He's good. He's Nigel. He travels with me everywhere. So, but again, I was walking around Qatar with just my my X100. Yeah. So and still, I don't feel like I miss out on any shots by not taking all my kit. If you know what I mean. Like I'm happy to walk around with my Instax. I'm happy to walk around with my X100, so you're not missing out on anything.
Well, I think it's also just that whole thing that we come back to sometimes, that it's just another tool. It's a creative tool, but it's another tool for the job. It's no different to someone who paints landscapes. Sometimes I'll go out with their oil kit. Sometimes I'll go out with their acrylics. Yeah. Sometimes I'll go out with charcoals or pencils, or it's just another tool that we use to create images. And I think at the end of the day, other than those that are producing obviously work for a client, but at the end of the day, if you're happy with your image making, then it doesn't matter necessarily what you're using to do that, because it's about that process again. Correct.
And you were talking briefly before about offline, we were saying this bit of this imposter syndrome. You worry about photographers. We are myself, I know. You always have this self-doubt. You never always think, oh, I'm a really good photographer. You get to a racetrack. Some days in particular, you go to a racetrack, you go to a corner, and you're doing a pan shot, slow pan, and you look at the frame and look at the back of the camera, and every frame is in the middle of the frame, pin sharp. Everything's great, and you just turn to yourself and go, I am a god. No problem. And then the next day, you go to exactly the same corner, exactly the same conditions, exactly the same time of day, and you couldn't hit the side of a barn with you don't get anything sharp, you don't get anything in frame. So it's all, I find it's very it's a lot more a mental game than people realize, and you always think to yourself, I'm rubbish at this. This is not great. If I walk up to a corner and I'm panning really badly, I walk away. I just go and do something else. I'll have a chat to myself. But the funny thing was, you think you're the only one that is having those sorts of feelings. As a good mate of mine, Jamie Price, he's a very, very good photographer based in the US. I had a shocking day at this racetrack called Sebring, where it's so bumpy. It's an old air base, so the track is so bumpy. I was panning poorly. I was having a bad day. I didn't get any really nice shots. At the end of the day, I had a good sit down with myself and had a chat. And the next day, had a reset and went and had a much better day. Walked into the media center and saw Jamie, and I said, I was feeling quite happy because I'd had a really good day. And I went up to him. I said, "G'day, mate. How are you going? How was your day?" And he said, "I'm selling all my cameras and I'm working at McDonald's." So, and I just went. He said, "I had an absolute shocker," and it was funny because I was not happy that he had a bad day, but happy in the knowledge that someone else has had a bad day. So you have to. It's very difficult to get that out of your head that you're not the only one that has a bad day. And even if you've I've been shooting for 40 years. Some days it goes really well. Other days, not so much. So, and the people say to me, "Oh, that's an Andrew Hall shot. I know, I can pick the style." And I go, "Oh, is that a compliment? I know it's a compliment, but am I going, am I becoming too predictable?" And it's like, do I need to switch it up? Or, and so there's all these things that go through your head. So, I just think, it all comes back to, am I having fun? Am I enjoying my photography? Regardless of what tech I'm using. It comes back to
it's a good point. And I think Jason just sort of chimed in saying, we'll get to his other comment in a minute because that will open a whole can of worms. But we were talking about, if it doesn't matter what the camera is if it gets you out. Correct. And the capability of a camera to make you want to use it is as important as its technical output. That's very true. And we talked about that on Monday night when we were talking about the GFX, and we will get to that with Andrew in just a moment, but I wouldn't mind jumping to Jim's comments. And
I have something as well that I want to ask before we get into the GFX talk. What did Jim say? Jim was asking about
how in a sec.
What's that?
I'll be back in
Roger.
Oh, no, you're still there. We can see you.
Yeah, wrong button. There we go. Now we're talking. So it's just the two of us.
Excellent, mate. That Greg guy, geez, he goes on, doesn't he?
Damn. Oh, he just talks and talks and talks. So Jim was asking about how the demand has changed over the years. You mentioned you drop your film off and then have to try and get it as fast as possible to the magazines. And I guess nothing's changed in the sense that everyone always wants it as fast as possible. But now we've actually got the ability to deliver it almost instantly. Does everyone want everything like immediately now? Is that a lot of pressure, and how does the workflow work these days?
Very much. It is a lot of pressure. I'm actually in a privileged position where I don't. The website Daily Sports Car, who I do a lot of work for the endurance series, they're not. They don't push me for deadlines too much. Like I have certain responsibilities. If I'm the only photographer there covering them for that event with them, end of each practice session, the top 3 or 4 in each class, we need photos of those guys. So that's easy. I can usually do that in the media shuttle on the way back to the media center, sort them out, and then airdrop them, pick them and airdrop them to my editor who's sitting in 2 desks in front of me usually. So that side of it, and then from the rest of it, I do what's called a race gallery or a practice and qualifying gallery, a race gallery, which can be anything. It can be art, it can be portraits, it can be, people, mechanics working on cars and driver portraits. It can be anything. So they're happy with what they get from that side of it. And I can collate that through the weekend. So the pressure is not hugely. I have to give that to them, maybe the practice and qualifying gallery just before, at the end of that practice day, give that to them. End of race day, after the race is finished, I can give them that picture. But I also do throughout the day, I'm dragging stuff into a Lightroom collection that I can use. They can use as generic stock. So maybe the first practice session, I'll go out and I'll shoot, a couple of different angles of the top cars, and then give them those. So there's no pressure on me. They can use those at any point during the weekend. So I know that the picture desk for Getty, and I have a few friends that work for Getty, that's a little bit more time critical. They'll often send pictures live from their camera to an editor who's sitting, especially at the tennis. They're actually sitting, when they sit at either end of the court, they're connected by Ethernet cable. So they're connected by Ethernet cable to an editor who's sitting in a room, a darkened basement behind them. So, at the end of a rally, the pictures are being sent and they're already on the picture desk ready to be edited and posted. So, the immediacy and the problem is the more you have that immediacy, the more they go, oh, I need it now, I need it faster, and you go, well, do you really? But the perception is, oh, I've got to have it now, and why can't we have it? And I know, and the problem is people are sending images from the racetrack, from out on the track. When I shot for the Grand Prix Corporation, did MotoGP and F1, they send runners out to get your cards, which was fine. I didn't have to edit anything. But, this whole immediacy thing now, where people are sending images from a mid-session from a racetrack, it's that whole, comes back to that chimping thing. You're missing.
You're missing. Yeah.
You're missing stuff because you're going, oh, I've got to tag and send that one. Well, the car that you're meant to be photographing just ran off into the dirt, and beautiful shot with gravel and stuff going over, and you're concentrating on the back of your frame of your camera to send a picture to the editor that wasn't as good as the one you just missed. You know what I mean? It's true. Yeah. So I'm fortunate that the Daily Sports car, that there's not too much pressure, and I also alleviate that pressure by shooting a bunch of stock that they can use, and provided the weather conditions don't change. I'm like in Qatar, it's like the middle of the desert and we shot a lot at night, so it doesn't matter whether it was. I'm letting a bit of a secret. It doesn't matter if it's practice session or race, as long as it's sharp, it goes in the gallery. So the immediacy is nuts now, but I'm thankfully not too stressed about that.
Yeah. One more quick question before we talk GFX 100 RF. Actually, and one comment before that, David from San Francisco just said he just come into the podcast at 81-minute mark, and he wants to know where the hell I'm broadcasting from. I'm from my Sprinter van on top of a mountain. We're traveling around and we're testing out Starlink, and it seems to be working pretty well today. I'm really happy with it. Yeah. So thanks.
Can you turn your camera? Can you show us the view, or is it?
I can. It's on manual, so it might blow out, and I'll see what I can do. Let's do this.
Oh, these photographers these days.
Yeah, look, hang on, I'm gonna have to.
Oh, that looks great.
That's great. It's really good.
Snowing, is it?
It's about the best I can do. So we're in a car park. Actually, there we go. We're in a car park, but it's actually quite nice. So we're on top of Mount Hotham. You can't see much from here, but we got a nice sunset last night. We're near all the winter ski slopes. Hang on, let me fix this. Can I use the back of my camera? So it's very important to know your camera so you can adjust the settings without looking at them.
Yes.
It benefits you from not updating cameras every 6 months, because you actually get a chance to know where all the buttons are, unless the camera manufacturers start moving them around on you. Thought I got booted to the garage. No, I'm in the van. Yelena actually got booted. She's literally, I should have pointed the camera to her. She's okay. I'll do it. We'll take a quick pause. If you're on audio podcast, I'll just describe it to you.
No, we can't see it. It's in a snowstorm.
Yelena is in a beanbag in the sun, working in a hoodie with a blanket on, because it's actually pretty cold up here, but the sun's beautiful. So,
and is that the Starlink?
That's the Starlink.
You got set up?
Yep. Yeah, we're doing it.
Wow. Real van life. You should start a podcast channel.
I should. I mean, if I was a real influencer, I'd be making reels and stuff and YouTube videos about a day in the life of, my morning routine in the van and stuff like that. Yeah. Okay, so last question that I had just about the motorsport, and I don't know if this is something you'll be able to answer or not, because you've had such an extensive career. If someone was starting again now, is it possible to make it a career in motorsport photography? And if so, how would someone even get started these days with so much competition? It would be such a desirable thing to be able to make a living doing. Where would you even begin?
The thing is, nowadays people go, oh, I want to shoot F1, and they sort of come in and think, oh, I want to shoot F1 like straight away, and you go, dude, no, like start at club level. I mean, I started at a motorcycle club doing the motocross stuff. Work your way up. Back in my day, I mean, there was quite a few publishers around. Obviously, quite a few magazines. So that was a cool gig for 20 years, you know, being a freelancer for them. And you'd pick up other shots here and there, other jobs. But now, because it's so immediate, and that whole, you know, you're talking about reels and social media and things like that, and videography, it's more now you see the and I hate to use that word, influencer, you know, turn up, and it's just, it is very, very difficult. But there's no substitute for starting at grassroots, building a portfolio, building some relationships with teams, with organizers. That's the only, that would still hold true. But whether it be producing just still content, or whether it be starting to do things like with video and, you know, and the social media side of it, that's more. I mean, we've got very few magazines, physical magazines left in Australia, and even fewer websites. So, you know, the issue is our location, our isolation. You know, a lot more work is available in the States and in Europe. So, but there's no substitute for the starting off at, the grassroots stuff.
Having said that, though, Angie, is it, you know, we talk about the influencers, and even Fujifilm, you know, we had Charlie on to talk about the Creator Summit in Sydney at Luna Park only a couple of weeks ago, really. Fujifilm are pushing very heavy into the influencer market, especially in Asia, especially in China, because that is booming now. Is it a case, do you think, that photography is becoming more about social media management than actual photography? I mean, photography is obviously an element, but you need to almost be a bit of a jack of all trades.
I think so too. I mean, I get often asked, "Oh, do you do video as well? Do you do reels?" Like another great friend of mine, Drew Gibson, I did some work with him in Sebring as well, and he said, "Oh, we need to do some vertical pans for the reels." You know, we never did. I'm going, I'm sorry, a what? You know, and have you ever tried to pan the camera vertically? I have issues with my arms. Anyway, I can't. I have to shoot. You'll notice most of my portraits are also actually shot landscape format. I have an issue with, I can't lift my arm up to use a camera without a vertical grip. So a lot of the time I just shoot horizontal. So when they said, "Oh, we need to shoot some reels," and it was like some social media manager talking to the two old guys from the Muppets again. And we're going, "What? What do you mean? What do you mean you got to turn it that way? What are you talking about? Why? It's not. It just doesn't." I tried to pan vertically, and it was so hard. And so what I ended up doing was just shooting it normally and just cropping the middle out of it. So framing it so I could actually crop it vertical when I needed it. But it was,
although I noticed now a lot more cameras are introducing the hold it landscape, shoot it vertical phone lines.
Yeah, that's the XM5 with the vlogging mode.
And the new GFX had that too.
Yeah. So, but it's just weird. It's just like, dude. And we're not that I keep saying, I'm a dinosaur. We're getting dragged into that new era. So the content we need to provide, we're still the same photographers, but the content we need to provide has changed quite a bit. So
because Justin, you shoot hybrid content for your clients.
I do. Oh, hang on. Let me just plug my Mac in. We're about to go to sleep. So I shoot hybrid content. Luckily, I'm not responsible for turning that content into. I've done some edits, but the edits I've done are longer form, like 20-minute videos and stuff like that, which is, I get that, and it works well with the way that I think for YouTube. But when it comes to reels and things like that, I don't have to make them. Hold on, truck.
Such a peaceful holiday.
You're in the hands of trained professionals.
I don't understand what's happening. Anyway, so because the reel, like producing reels is a whole sort of skill set in itself, and shooting for them, it does take quite a lot of skill, because these screens for content suck. It's an amazing device, but if you watch the easiest way to see how terrible shooting for this format is, despite we need to do it because that's where everyone's attention is right now, put put reels or shorts or whatever, go to YouTube Shorts, but on your TV. If you've got YouTube on your TV through Apple TV or a smart TV or something, do that, but then watch some people's shorts and just watch how much information is missing from the frame, or how they've had to fit it into that frame because of the constraint, and how terrible it looks, and how much better it would look if you had the real estate of a TV or simply phone on the side. And it's, you know, it's obviously something we need to do, because that's how the feeds are currently optimized for vertical content. But I see it being something that changes very soon. And by very soon, I mean 5 to 10 years, with the advent of virtual reality or AR kind of screen tech close to phones. When that shift happens, us as image makers or media creators or whatever we are, we'll probably get a lot more freedom with how we frame up our images, in my opinion. But it is certainly, it's something that everyone wants. And when you said everyone wants hybrid, they want every, you know, possible style of media created so that they can put it out into any channel or any advertising that they want. When you mentioned earlier about how to get into this, into motorsport these days, when you were talking about club things, the thing that went straight into my head was, if I was trying to do this to make a career in it, I'd probably, obviously club is a great way to just shoot and shoot and shoot. But then I would be trying to find, like you said, a team that can't afford somebody yet, and just making everything they need. Reels, YouTube vlog. I'd be shooting behind the scenes of people working on the car, make a quick YouTube video. I'd be taking images, everything that they could possibly want, because that's how you'll end up, being valuable to maybe a team that can afford you. If you can say, hey, if you can pay for me to come along, I can do anything you want. But it's a tough skill set to build.
Totally. See this button on here? I think it says, I don't even know where to turn it on. They usually say movie or still, and it's like, they go, does this shoot video? I go, apparently. But only time I've ever turned it on is by mistake with my stupid fingers on the top of the button, and I've gone, what's it doing? I have no idea. You know, so for someone to say, oh, can you shoot video? It's like, it's not in my wheelhouse, and I don't. I'm too old to learn that whole new skill, and obviously someone who's been brought up in that. As I said, my social media manager, my daughter, has been helping me a great deal, and doesn't roll her eyes as much as she used to when I ask questions or things like that. So I'm getting better. But it is true. You would not just be able to walk up and go, I want to be a motorsport photographer, because there's those opportunities are few and far between. But if you went, I can be your social media creator, then that's different. So
it's a different proposition, isn't it?
Totally.
But you're also making a promise to be, like I said earlier, a jack of all trades. And it's,
and then do you miss out on
miss out. Maybe you miss out on quality of the photography or quality of the videography, or maybe they're great with, understanding hashtags and where to put the best content and the type of content for each platform. But where are the sacrifices being made for those marginal gains?
I find that I use a term, and it's probably an old-fashioned term. We call it sausage factory. So you just put output. And photographers that I know are far better, can produce far better images, or far more dynamic and emotive images, can't do that because they don't have the time, because the time pressure. Oh, get that out. Got to get that out, and they've got to do a video, and they've got to do this. Whereas if all they were shooting was, beautiful background, behind the scenes stuff, or beautiful portraits, or beautiful, they could concentrate and show their real skill. But obviously, again, it's that time pressure. Got to get it out. Got to get it. And
maybe brands don't care, because they know that they look at the analytics. They know that everyone's going to look at that image for 2.5 seconds.
It's exactly. It's us as old photographers looking at it going, well, that's rubbish. But everyone else is looking at it and seeing their favorite movie star or favorite whatever, and they're going, oh, that's really funny, that's really cool. And we're looking at the background going, oh, that's rubbish. Look how the exposure is ridiculous, So horses for courses. So we and I'm I'm quite happy that I'm learning new skills. I don't post as much as I should do probably on Instagram. When I have time off Instagram and I come back on, whatever the algorithm is, I drop in likes and views and things like that, and it takes a while to build that back up again. But I don't understand how that works. B, do I care? No, not really. I post stuff on Instagram because I like it, not and it's the same mentality I used to use in the old days when I was in camera club. People would go, "Oh, competition this weekend. This is so and so. He likes cats." The judge, so everyone would drag out a picture of a cat. Would never point the camera at a cat again for the next 10 years. I would just put in stuff that I know that he hates. Or we had one particular judge who used to come around, a lovely man, who's unfortunately passed away, Phil Ramsden. He used to come around and go, "I hate motorsport. I hate motorsport," and he would tell me to my face. And so I'd put in a bunch of motorsport stuff just to wind him up. And because the whole idea was, I'm doing this for my enjoyment. I'm doing this for that, rather than trying to gain likes and views and all the rest of it. So I'm probably I'm lucky that I'm not trying to make a living out of it, but I don't think that I could even adapt to doing. People say to me, "Oh, can you do some videos and short reels?" I go, "I don't know how."
Yeah,
I don't know.
not your guy.
Yeah, I'm stills only. So
let's jump to a couple of comments, because there are
there's
some comments on that topic. Do you want to take care of it, Justin, or you want me to do it?
You go for it. There's also a couple about
thanks.
which I thought would be fun.
I missed that bit. You cut out. Your Starlink isn't that good. Andrew, this is from Jason. Is there a consistently best or favorite track in the world for motorsport photography?
The Le Mans 24-hour circuit. Yeah. 13.29 kilometers around. And I've been shooting there for 20 something years, and I'm still finding new angles. Well, I have to find new angles because they keep moving gravel traps and cutting down trees and things like that. So, as far as a circuit that provides, so opportunities, sunset, sunrise, pouring rain, long shots, pan shots. It's just an amazing, and just you can, some of the photos you take, you can feel if they were a scratch and sniff type thing, it would be like, just you feel the emotion of like a 24-hour race. It's I love it, and I've been back there so many times, and I still get goosebumps when I walk into pit lane. So the first day there. So that's
very cool.
It's definitely Le Mans. Definitely Le
Mans. Next question from David. Has Andrew ever shot at Laguna Seca in Monterey, California?
The picture that was actually used on the thumbnail for this podcast was actually taken at Laguna Seca during the Rennsport Porsche Festival. That was really weird. That's straight. The cloud came over. It's some phenomenon they get at Laguna Seca in the afternoon. Like the sea mist comes in, and that car was, because that is a famous corner. The gentleman who posted that question would know that's the corkscrew, where they go over the rise and down through this massive, famous corkscrew turn. So that was just before it downshifted as he went over the top, and that's an old-fashioned Porsche that is spitting flame all the time on the downshift. So that's Laguna Seca. I love Laguna Seca, and because I've only shot historic Porsches there. I mean, it in September in the sunshine. It's one of my favorite tracks as well.
Wow,
very cool.
One more quick question about have you ever shot the Isle of Man? Jason wants to know, have you ever shot the Isle of Man TT?
That's on my list. Like as I'm stepping back from doing a lot of races, there's still a few races on my bucket list. So I want to do Isle of Man TT, and I want to do the Indianapolis 500. So there's two races. Considering this is my 38th year or something in motorsport, it's. I've missed those two, but
but it's still wonderful that you've got a bucket list. I think that's pretty. I think that's pretty cool and inspirational. Even after all of that experience, and even after all that, exposure to the industry, to your particularly your preferred genre, that you still have things that you wish to achieve, I think is lovely. And there's that romantic element to it again. That actually, I've still got some photography goals that I wish to fulfill while I still can.
Well, there's the Le Mans 24-hour, which will be, like you said, my last one this year. 3 weeks after Le Mans, there's the Le Mans Classic, which is only on every 2 years. So that has all the historic Porsches and things like that. So what I'm actually doing this year, I'm extending my trip, and I'm actually staying over there for another 3 weeks. My darling wife will be joining me after Le Mans, and then we'll do Classic Le Mans together and then come home. So yeah, that's another one that's on my list. But I'm forever grateful. I never take it for granted that I'm able to chase these things around the world. And you do pinch yourself, especially when you're standing trackside in the middle of the night at Le Mans, thinking, how cool is this? And then it rains and it's less cool, but
It's still there.
It's still there. Yeah.
Well, it's very cool. Just in the interest of time, we've just hit the 11 o'clock a.m. here in sunny Victoria, Australia. For those of you watching along or listening along, this is the Camera Life podcast brought to you by Lucky Straps, maker of fine premium leather camera straps from Bendigo, Victoria, Australia. And obviously, Justin is the founder of Lucky Straps, and small team. But we do great things.
We're doing stuff.
And we have a laugh.
We have fun. We put all of the money from the camera straps is currently getting funneled into this podcast, and I love it.
Yeah. But look, on that note, I think we might start to wind up a little bit. I just wanted to cover off a couple of quick, quirky news items. It was obviously April Fool. On what day was the 1st? What day is it now? The 3rd. So on Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Yeah. And I often like to look at, what are the quirky things going on in the world that are April Fool's jokes. And I did come across some photography ones, and the good people at what is it? Photo Rumors. They've compiled them into a list. Can I share those with you now, Justin, or do you have any other questions about?
Well, the only thing I wanted,
we haven't.
Like we've teased the fact that
You're right.
you wanted to talk a little bit about the GFX 100 RF. So whether you want to do that, and we can save the April Fool stuff for Monday, or
we'll leave that for Monday. It'll be fine. It's not it was just a little bit of fun to wrap up on, but I think it's a good question. Andrew, what do you think about the GFX 100 RF?
I love him.
Do you have one of them there? Do you have one with you right now?
No, I don't. I attempted to get one, but Charlie's got them all. So
He's doing road shows at the moment. Charlie's in Melbourne. He's just arrived, I think, yesterday or the night before.
I have held them. I was privy to. I saw a couple of the development and prototype versions in Japan last year, but look, when they announced it, I thought, who's this for? And like, I think it's for someone who uses one of these, obviously. Like, it's being a fixed lens, having the 100 megapixel. The key to it, when I saw the aspect ratio dial, I thought, is that a bit of a gimmick? I don't know. And then I used it, and I went, that's probably the single best feature. And again, shooting JPEG, like, it's funny when you shoot you can shoot JPEG and RAW. People shoot JPEG and RAW. I know, because if they shoot something in black and white, I may want to have it in color later. But I commit, method, go full method, and go, nope, I'm shooting JPEG and I'm shooting it black and white, and that's the way it's going to stay. Because if I shot film back in the day, of course, black and white, it stayed black and white. So, and what I love about the RF is the fact that you've got this aspect ratio dial. So, for an old photographer like me, it's very nostalgic. I shot the 617 film camera from Fujifilm, and now there's actually a 6:17 ratio on, or 17:6 as they denote it, which wasn't present in any other camera that we had. So, for a high resolution, all-in-one travel camera, I think that's going to be its niche, because you can shoot in all these different formats. You can, you've got 100 megapixel to play with. You've got digital converters, which give you an increased range in that one camera. So you know, I think for that will be its true superpower, and it's something that I would use it for. Even an everyday, I know it's a rather high-end everyday camera, but if I was going out to a function, or if I was going out just for a walk, or I was going for, you know, anything, I grab this. So I would be probably inclined to grab the RF. 35mm f2, it's a 28mm equivalent. That's perfect as far as I'm concerned, as far as to give you a nice field of view. The build quality is phenomenal. It is just out of this world. It should actually just be put under glass. You know, the build quality is next level.
Whenever I review a Fuji camera, I think people that read my reviews are getting sick of this, but I often say you could hammer nails in with this camera, because the build quality is just phenomenal. Like, they are incredibly solid machines.
This thing, my poor long-suffering X-H2s, I just took it to the camera repair to get the sense. All I get is sensor cleans. That's it, because I've got half a desert, or usually over my sensor. I have been around the world, and I can say, hand on heart, I have never had anything go wrong with this, or break off it, or And when I see some of the forums and go, oh, my hot shoe fell off, or the shutter button's fallen off, I'm going, dude, what are you doing? You know, these things are hanging off, you know, a camera over my shoulder and banging and clattering into concrete walls, and, you know, being, you know, exposed to dirt and dust and all the rest of it, and nothing's come off them. So I don't know what you guys, I don't know what we're doing with them, but but the RF is next level. It really is. Just the machining, the dials, everything's very tactile, and the size of it is something that is, you know, I thought was surprising, and they kept it small, and that's where it comes to that, you know, the elephant in the room, the no IBIS and the 35mm f4 lens. I don't have a problem with the f4 lens. I think that's fast enough. You've got ISO, you know, to burn on these things. IBIS, I shot the full range of cameras before IBIS was ever around. Given the current state of my legs and my leg braces, I need IBIS on me more so than on a camera.
Well, you're in the right. You work for the right company to actually make that a thing.
I'll just say, just inbuilt, Andrew stabilizer.
Because Fuji do have a medical, you know,
don't worry,
a whole medical side to their business.
I've already hit them up. Don't worry. So, I think it will become another, and this is an icon. This range is very, very iconic, and I think the RF will be in that same vein. I think it's genius, and it's brave too of Fuji to do that, to commit to a fixed lens. You know how it's not mainstream; it's quite niche. But I think it's well, judging by the reaction to it so far, it's been quite good. And there's a gentleman, Brian Minar, who is a US-based X Series photographer, and he's been using it. He used it a lot in Prague for the launch, and he actually deliberately shot some stuff at like 1/20th handheld to show that you don't need the IBIS. So I think, again, we went back to that when we were saying people were relying on technology too much and forgetting how we used to do it in the old days. So I think it's a great success. I mean, to have 100 megapixel on board like that in such a small small footprint is quite amazing. So it definitely, the trouble is though, the biggest decision you have to make, I've got silver ones. All these have been silver, all my whole range from the original X100. And I saw the silver one in the RF and I went, oh, that looks great. And then I saw the black one and I went, the black one looks really good. Now, I mean, that's if the biggest decision in getting the camera is what color should it be, you can see where I have no issue with any of the other specs. So
it is an interesting thing now that you mentioned it, Andrew, that Fujifilm have always done, not always, but you know, the X Pro 3 they brought out in 3 colors with 2 different finishes. Because you could get that, what was it, the Duratec, on
black
top of the titanium 3 colors. Some of their cheaper entry-level cameras they did in a champagne, a silver, and a black. The XT systems have always been silver or black, like silver and black or black. But I must admit, when I picked up the GFX 100 RF in black, and at the time when they'd sent it to me, because obviously I was under media lockdown. I was under embargo. I couldn't talk about it. There was very limited specifications that I got when I first started writing the review, which was great because I wasn't clouded by knowing what this camera technically could do. I just went out and enjoyed shooting with it. And it wasn't until after that I'd actually taken most of my shots. I'd worked a lot of it out, because you do when you do this all the time. It wasn't until after that I found out that actually, there's also a silver version, and here's all the specifications. And I think it's interesting that Fuji still pursue that. I know that other brands like OM sometimes do it, and and sometimes Canon will do it with their point and shoots. But I do like the fact that Fuji gives you that little bit of choice about how you want your camera to look. Do you want it to look more retro, or do you want it to kind of look more modern and sleek and black?
It comes back to the fact that they ask for input. Like when I go to Tokyo, usually they sit around with a bunch of us and they go, right, what do you like? What do you like? What don't you like? What do you want? Things, even down to simple things. They had already had almost the XT3 in production, I think it was, and the actual dial for the ISO and the drive, it was even. So when you grabbed the ISO dial, you turned it, and it often turned the drive button as well.
Yeah.
So we just said we had a prototype in our hands. We signed all the NDAs and had a prototype in our hand, and I said we just need the top dial to be bigger.
Yeah.
So you don't grab both. And there was lots of nodding and okay, cool. And I thought not a chance. And obviously it wasn't just me who was giving this feedback. The production model came out and the dial was different. Yeah. They'd actually gone back and changed the tooling.
Retooled,
to change that, and just simple things like that. So when we're encouraged to be honest, and people say, AF is, how good is the AF compared to the Canon and the Sony? And I said, well, I don't know, because I don't use those cameras, but I'm sure the top end R1 is going to have better autofocus than my X-H2s. But does it matter? No, because my X-H2s is more than capable, and I'm more than capable of using it to its best with the autofocus. So,
and you know what, Andrew, that's okay. If you want R1 speed and Fuji don't deliver it, you don't have to buy a Fuji.
Correct.
Maybe that camera is not for you. And I keep coming back to this point. I've seen a lot of people getting carried away, and this is the parent in me coming out, carrying on about what the new GFX doesn't have. And it's like, well, then go find the camera that does have that for you.
Correct.
This obviously isn't it, and that's cool. That's fine.
They don't let me on forums. They don't let me answer things.
It doesn't make Fuji a bad company. It doesn't make them dumb or misguided or nearsighted. It's they didn't make this for you. That's fine.
The one thing I say when they say, "Oh, you're a Fujifilm ambassador. You get to use all the new cameras, so you're obviously going to say good things about them." And I go, "Well, I'm a passionate Fujifilm user, yes, but if a Fujifilm camera could not produce the work that my clients demand in a professional environment, would I use them? No." Yeah. Because that's my livelihood. So
you've still got to put food on the table.
I can't turn around and go, I love Fuji, it's brilliant, it does all this, and then it doesn't, because so I'm proud of the fact that I've watched the evolution of the X series. I'm proud to be involved in a lot of the development of the cameras. So I can't say I'm fully responsible for the new AF. There's been a collaboration with a whole bunch of people around the world. But there is that collaboration, and there is that desire to improve. And my autofocus is more than capable of producing the images that my clients need. And I have that confidence in the system. So I'm not always, I am a professional photographer using Fujifilm system and a fanboy. So it's sort of a, one, you can't have one without the other. I mean, if the camera wasn't producing the results, then it wouldn't be good.
Yeah. A great comment here from Jason, I think, to just to cap that one off, is that, spot on. And this is driving me nuts about the new OM3 controversies. No one is forcing anyone to buy it. Use what works for you, whatever form that takes. And it's absolutely spot on. And it's an ethos that I've tried to stick to as and I don't work professionally anymore, and I barely did even when I did, especially compared to what yourself and especially Justin. Justin has shot a crazy amount of images for paying customers. But, I think we often lose sight of things, and I see it more and more, and I love Apple products, always have, like from the early days when MacBooks were white, in the clamshell, white and blue, the clamshell semi-transparent blue one. That was like the first one that we used.
You are
always
old.
been but they have led the world in terms of telling you what you think you need.
Yeah.
And I find that that's created a mentality amongst consumers, especially of high-end product like MacBooks and cameras and things like that, that everything that brand talks about is for you, and it's not. And it's like you said, the X100, the GFX 100 RF is a niche camera, and it's for a select demographic, and we'll wait and see what that turns out to be in more detail, as cameras get out there and after sale. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's for you. And I remember when in the early days, the X100s, people thought they were a fad and a phase that would, they're just like a toy camera. They're not real cameras, because the original X100 was grainy as hell, but it had gorgeous color profile, and and it was more about the joy of it, the experience, the fact that you could carry this all in one little thing with you, like you could in the old days. And I think that's what we'll find with this GFX. Obviously, time will tell. But yeah, it is interesting watching the internet lose its collective shit over something that 95% of them can't afford to buy it and really don't need it.
Yeah, when all they need is.
Yeah, that's gold.
That's all they need. Yep.
Yeah.
So
quit your whinging, get an Instax.
Get an Instax. Quit your whinging. Yeah. It's go full analog. Embrace the analog. So.
Yeah. Listen to the old man shouting at the clouds. Look, I think on that note, I am conscious that you are actually at work today. So
okay, I've allocated enough time, so it's no problem.
Good. But Justin, do you think we might wrap it up there?
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
Yeah, cool. I'm sure Yelena's sick of being out in the cold, snuggling under a blanket while you kick her out of the van.
Pretty cold too.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, cool. Peace,
all right.
Peace, Dennis. Yep, back.
Yeah, Dennis says, Andrew, thank you for your time, openness, inspiration. Peace, Dennis. And Jason says, great show, guys. Enjoy your week. Thanks, both of you, everyone, for watching. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks to everyone.
Thank you.
And everyone in the comments too, like really great conversation. Keep the conversation going. I know we say we'll try to get to comments. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, but we'll probably have a look at this episode again on Monday night. Just remember that if you subscribe to our channel, you'll get and hit the bell, you'll get notifications for our Monday night show, which is 7:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Time. Daylight savings is about to end here, so be aware of that. And obviously our Thursday morning episode, where we talk to amazing, inspirational and clever people like our good friend Andrew Hall. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us. It's my
pleasure. My pleasure.
Like I said, we talked about bucket lists earlier, and this has been at the top of my bucket list for this podcast. And I feel amazing knowing that we've had you on the show and we've been able to have this conversation.
Thank you, man. I hope I didn't ramble on too long. So.
That's usually my job. So it's nice to have a rest.
It was perfect, and we've had tons of people viewing the whole time. It's been the viewers have been more and more and more. So everyone that's come on has been stuck around and listening. So everything you've said has been super valuable.
Thank you, mate. Thank
absolutely.
you. I appreciate it. Look, if you are foolish enough to want me on again, just let me know, and I'm happy to show up.
Oh yeah, we'd love that. Absolutely. But look, on that note, folks, we are going to wrap it up. This has been the Camera Life podcast. You've been listening to Justin, Greg, and remember, you'll get the best discount by using the code Greg at the Lucky Straps website. Use code Greg. My Christmas bonus and my trip to Japan is part of my Christmas bonus is at stake. So
cool.
Use code,
right, isn't it, Justin?
It is actually. Yeah, it is.
I look forward to my Lucky Straps merch arriving. In the next.
We'll talk about that off camera. Don't you worry about that.
Coming. We'll get you a nice warm hoodie.
Yeah. So don't forget, folks at home and listening along. you know, Christmas is really only just around the corner. It's already April. So buy your loved ones some Lucky Strap merch. We sell T-shirts. We sell hoodies. We also, winter's approaching here in Australia. We sell gloves, beanies.
Yeah, the Ballarat gloves, they're not ours, but we do. We're looking after them in Australia, so that's all coming up for winter. And otherwise, if you don't have a wonderful camera strap, that's the main thing we make, and the main thing we've made for the last 11 years. Make them in Bendigo, genuine leather, quick release, cut resistant, webbing, anti-theft, locking, all that stuff, all the good stuff. So check them out, luckystraps.com. Otherwise, thanks, Bruce. Thanks for the show, guys. Bruce says, Matt says, have a great week, fellas.
Thanks, Matt.
With that, should we
play
call
out the
it?
music, boss?
I've got no music, so we'll just
Where's
have
your
to
ukulele?
Where's the garbage truck? Where's the garbage truck when you need it? Just
Reversing. Beep, beep.
I can't hear actually. So. Anyway, we'll just have to silently and awkwardly wait for the stream to end.
Yeah, we will.
Thanks, guys.
But thanks, everybody. Be safe. Get out and hunt the light, and make the most of it. Look for the fun. All right. On that note,
thank you. Thanks
see you later, everyone.
Okay. See you. Bye. Bye.
Bye.